Gentlemen, today we're going to talk about how to travel the world on a small, limited budget. Here on Big Pretty Man. Hi, welcome back to Big Pretty Man, the channel for the extra-large man who wants to live his life large and in charge. I'm your host, Timothy Big Pretty Crowe. I'm a wardrobe and lifestyle consultant for the extra-large man. And yes, folks, Big Pretty is back. As I said in my last video, which is over a month ago, I did recently move, and it's been a very hectic, disorganized move. I had to move basically 2 households, and everything's gotten settled now. And as you can see, I'm in a new home, and with a new backdrop behind me. I hope maybe not as intriguing as my gods, but I think it's fairly nice, don't you? But now it's back to business. And speaking of moving, one question I've been asked a couple of times from people who have seen my other videos where I talked about some of my travels. They're like, "Oh, I'd love to travel like that, Big Pretty, but I live on a very strict budget. I just don't know how I could ever travel to other countries." And it's true. I have traveled quite a bit. I regularly travel to the United Kingdom. I love England. I try to go every year, every other year. I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Egypt. I've been to the Caribbean. I have traveled Canada, Mexico. I have traveled around. But here's the thing. I'm not a man of great means. I am a working man like everyone else, and I have to work on a budget myself. However, as I said in my earlier video about living your dreams, you can't allow the routine of making a living and your responsibilities keep you from your dreams. There is room for both. It just takes a little bit of creative economics and planning. And and even on my limited budget, I managed to travel all these places. I'd have plenty of spending money when I got there. I've stayed in some of the best hotels. I've eaten some of the best restaurants. And I'm going to tell you how I did it. And like I said, it's all in the planning. So let's get started. Now, the first tip I'm going to give is probably the most important and the overriding one for them all. And it's what I just said, and that is to plan ahead. You need to plan a vacation or a journey well ahead of time, especially if you're not a person of great means on a budget. The further you plan it out ahead, the cheaper it's going to be, and the easier it is going to be to accommodate. Now, when I say for plan ahead, what I would recommend is if there's someplace you're particularly going. Let's say, like with me, I'll use my model of where I go to the UK, because I do it so often. If I want to go to the UK, I'm going to decide when I'm going to go, and I want to try and do that 9 to 6 months ahead of time, at least. The reason I say 9 to 6 months is because in the planning, which I'll talk about later, doing the scheduling, it'll be easier to arrange things. So, if you go any far, like a year before, it makes it a little bit harder. It's not impossible, but it makes it harder. So I would say 9 to 6 months before you go. Now, that'll give you time to put in for your vacation time at work. That'll give you time to work out where you're going, what you're going to do, all of those details. But planning far ahead is going to save you a lot of money, number one. And it's also going to give you time to collect the funds and the things that you're going to need for your trip. So whenever you plan your trip, you need to be thinking far ahead. You need to be like I said, 9 to 6 months. That way you can get started. Now, the second thing, and this is another very important thing, is get an itinerary. Get an itinerary of what you're going to be doing. Now, a lot of people, one of my exes, her idea of a vacation was just book the flight, go over there, and just no plans whatsoever what we were doing, where we were going, anything like that. Well, that's just going to cost you even more expense at the moment. No, whenever I travel, if I'm going somewhere, especially if it's a type of journey or vacation where I'm going to go like as a sightseer or go look at things, rather than, I see it as having two types of vacations. You have more of a leisure vacation, and that type of vacation, you're just going somewhere to lay on the beach, eat dinner, hit the bar, go home, sleep it off, that type of thing. You don't need a lot of planning for that. Basically book your hotel, book your flights, have money for your meals and your drinking, and that's it. However, if you're going on a type of journey where you are, or vacation where you're going to actually look at things, and there's different types of activities and adventures you want to do, you really need to plan that out. What I do is I sit down and and the good thing is now you can do it all online. I look at where I'm going to go, and I'm thinking, okay, these are the things I want to see. For instance, let's say I'm going to go to the UK. And now, what do I want to see while I'm there? Okay, first I've got to figure out how many days do I have. Let's say I have 10 days. I'm going to be 10 days in England, or the UK. What do I want to see? Well, of course, I want to see London. And while I'm in London, what do I want to see while I'm there? Well, I'd want to see, of course, Westminster Abbey, where the kings and queens of England are buried. I'd want to see the Tower of London. How can you go without seeing the Tower of London? I want to see St. Paul's Cathedral, of course. I want to see Big Ben and Parliament, of course. I want to see Trafalgar Square. There you go. Maybe, and you know what? I'd like to take the Jack the Ripper tour while I'm there. Okay, right there. Now you have what you're going to see and what you want to see and want to see as you're going to. So you can put that on the itinerary. You look at the days and you're like, okay, I want to spend, how many days will that take me to see? Let's say 3. All right, 3 out of my 5 days is going to be in London. Okay, so, and then I want to set up, I want to put them, see this day, see that this day, see this that day in the itinerary. Now, after those 3 days, where do I want to go? Well, I've always wanted to see York, York Minster, and the beautiful walled cities of York. Okay, so look on the map, see how far it is from London to York. And hey, wait a minute, in between I see that there is Stratford-upon-Avon. Shakespeare's buried there. I know what, I'll stop there as well. So now you got 2 more places on your itinerary, Stratford-upon-Avon, and you've got York. So what do I want to see in both those places? Well, of course, you want to see Shakespeare's burial place, and you want to see Shakespeare's house, and look around the town. Maybe even take in the Shakespeare Theater there. So you put that on the itinerary. Okay, I'm going to go for this one day. How many days is it going to take me in Stratford-upon-Avon? Probably get that done in a day. 1 day there. Well, spend the night. Probably I'll just spend the night there. Okay, next day I'm going to go to York. So there's 2 days right there. Next day you go to York, and you look at the distance and how long it's going to take, and you put that on the itinerary. And that's how you do it. Now, then you go back, you got to start looking at how to plan things, and to pay for things. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about. So now you figured out when you're going to go, when you're going to go, where you're going to go, and what you want to see while you're there. And you've made up an itinerary of these places and these sites that you want to see. You've put them on an itinerary, and you've looked at the times, and you've looked at the days, and you've worked all that out. So now the thing is to start figuring out how much all this is going to cost. Because here's the thing, and this is the good thing about planning so far ahead. You don't have to pay everything at once in one big bulk. Or when you get there, have to pay as you go. You can pay things ahead of time. And that's my third thing. After an itinerary, pay for as much of your vacation before you ever leave home. Have it paid for. And the good thing is, you don't have to pay it all at once. That's really the secret economically to it. For instance, let's take with London. Well, you know what you want to see in London. You know what you want to see in London. You're going to start in London. So that right there sets your, first you got to fly there, right? Well, that's another thing about going 9 to 6 months out. You can book a flight, that far out, and the price is going to be a quarter, maybe even less of what you're going to pay if you got up like a month or 2 before. And God forbid you try to get it within a week or so, too. It's going to up it, 50%. So the further out that you book your flight, the cheaper it's going to be. Okay, so now you've got that. Now what's the second thing you've got to worry about when you go on a vacation? You've got to get there, and you got to have a place to stay. Really 3 things you got to deal with when you go on a vacation that are a must economically. The transportation, the lodging, and the food. That's the three things you have to go to. Everything else is secondary. So so first you pay for your flight. And you can go ahead and, if getting that far out, I think I flew to England for something like around $500 round trip the last time I went. Yeah. I think the last time I looked and booked it out 6 months, it's going to be like $768. Now, I'm just talking about individually. If you have other people, you have to double that, of course. But right there, that's, and go ahead and, okay, that's how much I need. Go ahead and pay for that. Now the ticket's paid for. Now, what's the next thing you got to worry about? Where am I going to stay? Well, if you've done your itinerary, you know the places you're going to be, so therefore you know where you need to book hotels or lodging. And what I would recommend, and just like with flights, you can book them way out ahead of time online. And what I would recommend, of course, is Airbnb. I love Airbnb. I heard that guy's now a billionaire that invented it, and he's earned it. That's one of the best inventions ever for traveling. With Airbnb, you can look up any area you're going, just put it in the Airbnb, and it'll show you all the accommodations, how much it costs per night. So, and you can actually book them, and you put a deposit down. You don't have to pay the whole thing at once, though I would advise going ahead and paying as quick as you can. So, like say we're going to London, we'll be the 3 days. Well, I'm going to look on Airbnb, look at what I'm going to see, look at the best areas, look at what I can afford, and look at, where I'm going to, find a nice place to stay, maybe in central London. And then you pay, go ahead and pay for that. And then you look, okay, I'm going to Stratford-upon-Avon, and then I'm going to York. Well, I'm going to be in York I'm going to be in Stratford-upon-Avon a day and spend one night. I need to get an Airbnb or a hotel there. I'm going to be in York, let's say 2 days. I need to book something. I need to book an Airbnb there. Go ahead and figure out all the places you're going to be, the dates that you're going to be there in your itinerary. Add up how much it's going to be for those days and pay it. So now you've paid for your flight, and then you can pay for your rooms for where you're going to stay. That is way over half of your vacation expenses. That's the basic expenses. Now, so right there, you've got a place to stay and how to get there. It's paid for. It's done. And if you do that like in the first month or so, you've got the rest of the month to save up more money and pay for other things. But it's not just the room and the flight. Also, you got to think about transportation. How am I going to get around there? If you're in London, I'm thinking, well, I'm probably going to take cabs or I'm going to take the tube. Recommend taking the tube everywhere you can go. It's easy to figure out. If not, there's people always in the tube stations that'll tell you where to go and what to get on to get where. So what are you going to need there? Well, go ahead and get yourself an Oyster Pass. You get yourself the underground subway pass and put money on there, and they will actually ship it to you. They'll actually mail it to you. So now you've got that. So now there you've got all your transportation, except for if you want to do cabs or something, and you got the room in London. That's taken care of. Now, okay, you're going to be traveling to Stratford-upon-Avon and then to York. How are you going to go? Well, you can either rent a car or you can take the train. Now, if you're going to rent a car, once again, that's just like with you do the airport, the flight, and you do your rooms. You can go ahead and find out how much it's going to cost for your car for those days, and go ahead and have the money for that and reserve the car. So, as soon as they'll let you do it. So you can get the car. And I would recommend this if you're in London, the trains will take you just about anywhere. And it's also, if you're not used to driving on what we call the other side of the road, you want to take that into mind. It's going to be a little confusing for you, especially when trying to drive around London. On the wrong side of what you consider the wrong side of the road and trying to adjust that, you just take the tube. Tube and trains. But say you're going to take the trains to Stratford and then on to York. Well, go ahead and look up the tickets. How much are they? You're going to get a discount because it's so far out. It's not going to be as expensive. Go ahead and pay for the tickets on those days. And the day you leave London, the day you're going to leave Stratford-upon-Avon, on to York. And then, of course, you have to do everything in reverse. Figure out how much all that is and go ahead and pay it, And you don't have to pay them all at once. Like I said, okay, I found out my flight, work that out. I paid for my flight. Okay, that's done. Okay, now Airbnb. It's going to be $500 for the whole trip. Okay, here's $500. Bam, I reserved and paid for all that. Okay, I need to get the Oyster Pass. I need to get, the train tickets. Okay, that's going to be so much, and you get the total. Go ahead and pay that. So by the time you get, maybe even, if I said it's 9 to 6 months out, time you get to like 4 months before you go, you've got everything paid for. And don't just end it at the trail pass, the Oyster Pass and the trains and the car. If any place you're going to see, for instance, how much it's going to cost to see the Tower of London, what's the admission price? Go ahead and pay for that if you can. Pay for online ahead of time, any ticket, anything that you can. So time you get there, everything you're going to do is already paid for. You've got all your tickets, you've got all your admissions, you've got your car, you've got your train tickets, you got your rooms, everything is paid for. That's your goal. Have everything paid for before you ever even get close to leaving. So now, once you get all that paid for, it's like, okay, I've paid my plane, I've paid my rooms, I've paid my train tickets, I paid for my Oyster Pass, I've paid for the car rental. All that's already been paid. Now, the only thing you got to do is come up with the rest of your money is going to be for food and touristy stuff. Things you might want to buy and do and shop and all that. Now, because everything else is paid for, you don't have to worry about it. Now, how much should you take along? Well, that's completely up to you. One basic rule I go by is if I'm going to go for 10 days, for every day I'm going to take have at least equivalent of $250 per day. Because, the only thing that's coming out of that is food. And I don't know about you, but I've never eaten $250 worth of food in a day. Well, maybe I have, but we won't talk about that. Still, and the rest can go into, anything else you want to do. You want to see some souvenir, you don't have to worry about penny pinching. I'm going to get that. I don't think I worry about how to get it home. I want this shirt. I want to buy this souvenir. I want to buy that little trinket to go along. I want to buy this for send home to my mother, to my kids, whoever. All that's taken care of. Now, so I would say if you add about, figure about $200, maybe $250, and of course, once again, you have to transfer over what that's going to be in the currency. Pound, the dollar's worth, like last time I checked, it's like $1.25 per pound. You need to check that, but you got to figure out how much it's going to translate, and take it from there. Now, as far as carrying money, there's two ways you can do it. You can either go by cash, and if you do that, be very careful. It is a little bit easier, or you can actually work it out with your bank. But just remember, every time that you use your bank card in another country, they're charging a big amount for that withdrawal. So you might already have your money ready, or even get your own, put it on a special credit card just for that, with just that money on it. You can do it that way. If you do carry it as cash, then I would advise getting you one of these hidden belts with a pouch inside. You put it inside your pants, male or female. That way, you got your money right on you. And you can't be pickpocketed, it can't be taken, that type of thing, and protected while you're there. But see, now you've paid for everything, and all the money you've got to get together for the last several months is going to be for your tourist stuff, your fun stuff, buying stuff, going places, and you can just, and you don't have to worry about the money anymore. You've got more than enough. In fact, the last time I went to England, I ended up coming back with over 400 pounds I didn't spend. And trust me, I was a big extravagant, eating, 4-course meals every night, and I bought plenty of souvenirs. But still, so that's how you do that. Now you're saying, well, that's good and fine, but still, I have to come up with that money. Come up with, just like putting anything in layaway, it's much easier to do things bit by bit like that. Pay off the airline, okay, now I've got the pay off the rooms, now, get all the travel and accessories, those monies, and get that out of the way. However, if you have a type of budget where you're like, I can't even spare that out, what I would recommend then is, hey, at least for a couple of months, find some other job to do. Whether it be something online, some other part-time job, and make sure that, if your present budget has been covered by the job you have, then if you really want to have this big, nice vacation, this big adventure, you're going to have to pay for it, in more ways than one. Maybe the price of that is taking on a part-time job, and all the money for that part-time job goes in the savings account for this vacation. 3 or 4 months, do that job, make that extra money. Find the way to make that extra money. And you can always figure out exactly how much it's going to be. All right, add it up in your list. flight, rooms, travel expenses, traveling money, souvenir money, all of that. I'm going to need, $2,500. Okay, then I need to get a job and make $2,500. Once you got that, then you can go ahead and start and pay everything off. I mean, really, because you're like, wow, that seems a lot. What's life worth? If you're just working all the time anyway, you're just going to work, coming home, going to bed, a couple of days off, what are you really working for? This will give you something to look forward to. This will give you an adventure, at least to work and do something that can bring pleasure to your life. I think that, and yes, it may be hard. You may have to burn a lot of midnight oil, but it ain't going to be worth it. You'll have a memory of something forever. You'll see something that you want to see all of your lifetime. You'll be living that dream. And isn't that what we're working for? If not, what is life all about? Well, okay, folks, that's all I've got about how to travel on a budget. I hope that it's a lot of help. And remember, even if it's a hardship on you, even if it means having to take on some extra shifts, take on an extra job for a few months, in the long run, isn't it going to be worth it to be able to live a dream that you've always had, rather than just scraping and surviving? For one time, you'll be working for something that'll bring you pleasure, that'll fulfill your soul, that'll fulfill your dreams. And I think for that labor will be a labor of love. Okay, and once again, I'm glad to be back. I hope you guys didn't miss me too much. And if you are enjoying my channel, please, if you haven't already joined, please be sure to subscribe. And if you like this video and you like listening to my big mouth, then please give me a like. I'm always love hearing from my fans and from my subscribers. And to all my fans that have stuck by me this whole time, a heartfelt thank you. I promise to not go any long hiatuses for quite a while. So until the next time I see you, save up that money, make those plans, get that itinerary, get on that plane, and go to the places where your dreams can come true. And while you're there, you stay pretty.